everybody. Let's see. Let's like we always do, we'll give ourselves a minute or two to get comfy here. All right. So what I'm gonna do today is well, a couple things. Like always, these will be recorded. You will get the copy of this recording. I think we have our best kind of sessions here when they're as interactive as possible. So let's do our best to collaborate on that front. Any questions you have, please ask. Right, this is the a great place for me to answer them. It doesn't matter if it's off topic, doesn't matter if it's random. I'm happy to help. Please put those in the Q&A, and usually that just kind of gets us going on discussion, helps your colleagues maybe think of some similar questions or whatever it may be. So please take advantage of time. We're here to serve you all. As school counselors, unfortunately, everybody, I think we're all back to school now. So welcome back for those of you in my neck of the woods in the Northeast and other parts of the country, I think Pacific Northwest, that are kind of just getting back this week, or at least the kids are just getting back. So hopefully the adjustment is as smooth as it possibly can be, because it's always a little bit of a sad time, I think, for most of us. So welcome back. What I'm going to do today are kind of the main and again, in addition to just being a sounding board here for any questions you have, I'm going to give you a condensed version of our kind of core presentation in terms of how this whole process works, financial aid, scholarships, etc. What all families need to know, whether they're eligible for aid, not eligible for aid, FAFSA, CSS profile, appeals, kind of our foundational presentation. As always, I'll share a bunch of helpful links, right? Helpful events that are coming up. I see a bunch of our high schools that we support and partner with already are on here. Welcome back. And then I see some kind of new names here, which is great. So welcome if this is your first time. And again, if we're not supporting your school, your district, etc., we would love to. So please talk to us about that. So the presentation I'm going to walk through is what we'll be doing in September for all of the high schools that we partner with, right? For parents, the focus is our class 2025 families that are officially in it right now. Now, we always recommend invite everybody. The earlier families start, the better off that they're going to be. The better off you all are going to be, right? And ultimately, the students and the families are more likely to have better outcomes. Let me share this kind of first link here. This is, where did I go? Oh, so this is Anne Marie Sanderson, who a lot of you know Anne Marie already, and she'll make your life better for just for knowing her a little bit. But Anne Marie is our high school partnership coordinator, and so if anybody is interested in learning specifically how we support high schools and school counselors, book some time with her, and she will give you the lay of the land. So I'm going to give you again a condensed version of that presentation. I'm going to kind of blow through the stuff that I know all you guys know in your sleep: cost of attendance minus SAI equals need. I'll double click on some things that I think are that, even if you have a lot of experience in this process, might be helpful for you to know if you don't have this stuff in your toolkit already. I'll talk about FAFSA updates, not a ton to share there, although a prototype was just released today, or was that last night? A prototype was just released, so I will share that with you all. And then again, we will keep this thing as interactive as possible. And then I will do my best to remember, when I wrap my quick presentation here, that on Friday, we're doing a demonstration from end to end on our platform, the MyCap software, which I'll be in and out of, and specifically how school counselors leverage it, how their communities leverage it. So if you're not working with us already, or even if you are, a lot of our partners are gonna come to that, already signed up for that on Friday, because they just want a reminder of everything that we got going on in that platform, what's new, et cetera, et cetera. So let me share my screen quickly. Okay. And like I said, please interrupt me with with any and all questions here. Um, as much as I love hearing myself talk, it's always good to have a break, right? Now, one thing to keep in mind is that we will always have these, yeah, okay, how do I register for that? I will get you that link, or if Anne Marie, if you can share that link in the chat, please, to register for that full presentation on Friday. Thank you for the reminder, Abby, and if Anne Marie doesn't grab that, I will grab it shortly. Okay, now we always have at least two presenters when we speak in front of a high school audience or parent and student audience, because for two reasons. Number one, it's just, as you guys are experiencing at the moment, it's just better to hear more than one voice, and we can play off one another and take some dry subject matter and hopefully bring some levity to it. Make it as entertaining as possible, again, given what we have to work with. But from a practical standpoint, whichever one of us is not talking is living in the Q&A. So a great part about these, thank you, Anne Marie. So in the chat is the link to register for Friday's presentation. So do that if you haven't already. But one of the silver linings about going virtual is that parents can show up to these events and ask really personal questions, right? Like, and be anonymous. Hey, I'm going through a really difficult divorce and it's complex, and we're usually able to provide some guidance there. I have this investment property. What do I do here? Or, I'm a really low income parent, or I'm not, we don't have any citizenship, or we're here on a visa, right? All these things that might be hard when you're in a room full of people to raise your hand and ask these questions. So it allows that opportunity, and it's great, right? It's another way that we can just answer families' personal questions in addition to coaching them on a high level. So it's kind of twofold, right? Something that we always say is that we take, a two-pronged approach in terms of educating families. We got to show them how this thing works from a high level, but then we need to show them, make sure that they have tools to figure out how is it going to work for them, right? Because you have a completely different strategy from an affordability standpoint if you're eligible for financial aid versus not eligible versus somewhere in the middle. And parents need to know with a high amount of certainty, where are they on that spectrum, and how that will inform, again, their affordability with this whole thing, right? So again, high level, we're starting, guys. What is financial aid, right? We'll just take 2 seconds to walk through that, and we'll start with need-based financial aid. Cost of attendance minus SAI equals need. We'll actually do some case studies too, which I'll show you in a second there. Now, obviously, if you have questions about cost of attendance minus SAI equals need, please ask them. I'm just working on the assumption that most of you are pretty well versed on that front. But again, I don't want to make assumptions. Here's what we'll spend a lot of time, right? Because there's a big message of ours is, look, a lot of this, we can't control that colleges are $100,000 a year now, at least from a sticker price standpoint. And all these other things, so much of this process is out of our control from an admissions and financial standpoint. So we got to focus on what we can control. And specifically in need-based financial aid, there's some things that we can control and we can be smart about, strategies that we can implement, or certainly costly mistakes that we want to avoid. So we'll start with kind of like the most common mistake that people make on the FAFSA that ends up costing them to pay more money for college is that they include their retirement accounts on the FAFSA. And very astute, smart people make that mistake because you literally have to read the very fine print in order to avoid making it. It just asks you for the net worth of your investments, right? And most people, it's almost like flip a coin. If I asked you that, some of you would include your retirement accounts, others wouldn't. Right. And most people, I would say, I would, if somebody asked me that. And that's what they put on the FAFSA. It also says in that same sentence, put the net worth of your investments, including real estate. It says including real estate. So many people make the mistake of putting their home equity. Again, in the fine print, it says only include real estate outside of your primary residence if you own your home, right? Easy mistakes to make. Now, the other really easy mistake to make, and this is one of the, changes I'm not in favor of, that's newer as of last year, is that they're going to, now everybody, if you are whether you're a sole proprietor or you own a corporation, it doesn't matter how it's structured, big, small, whatever, every business owner, a self-employed person, has to put a value of their business on the FAFSA, It's very easy to make a mistake there. Most families that we've seen hugely overvalue their business. So we talk them through how to make sure not doing that, right? And maybe the biggest takeaway is you should be completely comfortable putting zero, right? Because the majority of self-employed folks are sole proprietors, and if they don't show up to work tomorrow, that's the end of their business, right? And so they should feel very comfortable in putting zero. And we'll walk through some other examples, but you know, that's how we teach it, and we feel very comfortable teaching it that way. And again, if those of you that follow us, you know who is on our team, the director of financial aid at Harvard and MIT, former director at USC, and we'll often have them on as guests. They will echo my sentiments. They are on record saying that in the same way that I'm saying it right now, but sometimes it's helpful to have parents hear that from others, you know, that are currently employed or formerly employed at these universities. So anyways, that's an easy mistake to make that we want to help them figure out. Okay. Another very common mistake, families that have 529s, they assume that that's a student's asset, right? It's not, even though logic would tell you it should be. You as the parent are the owner of that, right? That is a parental asset, not a student's. That's a huge difference because colleges will put much more scrutiny on any money in the parent's name than they will in the student's name. So again, a very common mistake to make. So we'll talk to them, go through the different things. Well, what about grandparent 529s? You know, what about UGMAs, UTMAs, custodial accounts, right? What about jointly owned accounts? Right? There's some easy things that we can do. If the kid has 10,000 bucks in their name because they're an industrious kid, they've worked, they've saved all their money from their bar mitzvah, first communion, whatever, put your name on there as parents, right? Now we can include as the parent assets, not the student assets. Even $10,000, that's not a huge number, but that's 2,500 bucks a year, right? So boom, that tip right there, we're saving a family $10,000 over the course of 4 years of college, right? So making sure that they are understanding how these rules work and are doing the smart things within those rules. And we'll spend some time talking about real estate, because even if you know, I shouldn't say most, many families that we get in front of own their primary residence, or at least some of it. There's every, you know, most have a mortgage, things like this. There's still so many colleges, so many popular colleges that consider, you know, home equity, and we want to make sure that they get that right, because it can be a huge swing in terms of how much aid that they get at these schools that are considering that, and help them figure out, well, how do I know which schools consider it versus don't? And then there's these ones in the middle, right? These colleges like, I don't know, you know, Boston University, which will tie the amount of equity they look at in a family's primary residence, but they'll cap it at the amount of household income they have. So it's a complex formula, but again, that stuff is all baked into our algorithm on the back end. Yeah, a UGMA is a student asset, right? So a UGMA or UTMA, custodial accounts are considered the student's assets. Little bit of a gray area there. If they're 529 UGMAs or UTMAs, usually it's totally fine to report those as parental assets, since they have that 529 element attached to it. So there's some complexities there and different ways that these things can be structured. But great question. Exactly the type of questions we're trying to clarify for these families that are a little bit more in the weeds. And by the way, I'm just going to any questions that you have, right? So I'm putting this email in the chat here, counselor@collegeaidpro.com. We have eyes on that all day, every day. We pride ourselves on being very responsive. Even if you have questions, that's for you. The only school counselors have that email. So any questions like that, you know, feel free to use us as a sounding board. We're happy to help. And again, we're on that all day, every day. Okay, yeah. So those are some of the ones that I think are not necessarily common knowledge in my experience. We'll talk to them about how they can, and how they should value their primary residence and other real estate if they have it. We'll also spend time here for families that have no resources, right? Pell eligible kids that are going to have a negative 1,500 SAI. We'll spend some time, depending on the state that we're in front of, virtually at least, right, talking about the state resources. And again, talking through, you know, what's more important for what's important for those families that, again, have little to no resources, how they're different than families that have resources. Now, and we speak in front of the whole spectrum, so it depends on, if we're just speaking to a particular school, we can make this thing a little bit more specific, right? If it's a bigger group, then again, we'll make sure that we're touching on all the principles that apply to everybody on the socioeconomic spectrum. Okay, our jointly owned accounts counted half for both the student and half for the parent asset. So really, you pick a lane here. So jointly owned accounts, right? You pick a lane. It would be our recommendation. And obviously, if they're jointly held between the parents and the students, we want to report them as parent assets, right? Because that's going to be a lot better for our SAI, i.e. financial aid eligibility. So assets are reported in real time, right? So the second we submit the FAFSA, the second we submit the CSS profile, it's a snapshot at that moment of our non-retirement savings, investments, et cetera. Whereas the income, they're looking at the prior tax year. So class 2025 are looking at 23 returns, 26, 24, et cetera, et cetera. And then the little bump up in the income allowance, right? So students that make less than this 9,400, it's not going to impact financial aid eligibility at all. That's kind of the threshold where once we get above that, they will take a closer look here. So, merit-based aid, right? Now we will spend some time. Now we don't do this. Usually we'll have these, we'll have a variation of this slide. When we're speaking in front of a Title I school, we'll spend less kind of emphasis on, hey, look, if you're not going to be eligible for need-based financial aid, here are your strategies. If that's not the case, we will hone in on that. Either way, we'll explain how merit is different than need-based aid, and how to find out which schools that are going to be relevant for your kid, for your family here. But this is specific for, or I guess the amount of emphasis will vary again based on our audience. Okay. So how do we get discounts if we're not eligible for need, right? And we talked through a few different things that we can do, but obviously the name of the game is merit-based scholarships. Who's going to give us those? And then a lot of families make the mistake of, well, I'm not eligible for need, so I'm not going to complete the FAFSA and the profile. Well, okay. That means you're not eligible for scholarships at schools like NYU. So let's make sure that we know which colleges require financial aid applications to be considered for merit-based scholarships, because we don't want to leave that money on the table, right? And then we explain to them that, look, it doesn't matter how smart your kids are. There's almost 100 colleges in the country where scholarships don't exist, right? They can be, perfect students with the perfect, most well-rounded resume. They're not getting a scholarship at Harvard or MIT or whatever, right? Tufts. So that's something that, again, we'll explain and kind of walk through that, because in our experience, that's not necessarily common knowledge. And then we'll help them and make sure that they are applying to competing colleges. I know I'm not sharing my screen here because I'm going to jump into the platform, because this is what we actually do during the presentation. So applying to these competing colleges are important for parents to know too, right? Because if somebody wants to go to Boston University, but they hated Northeastern, we make them apply to Northeastern just so we can use that offer as leverage, right? They're dying to go to University of Miami, we're going to make them apply to Tulane, right? And so on and so forth. If we love, these liberal arts schools and the Midwest, Oberlin was a top choice. Kenyon didn't feel right. Too bad you're applying to Kenyon. We know you're never going to go there. We're just going to use that offer as leverage, right? So we want to create that competition, because even if we're not eligible for need-based aid, that is the way that we're maximizing opportunities for getting deeper discounts and taking our SAI out of the conversation. Now, of course, that strategy still applies for families that are eligible for need-based aid as well. So here's our platform, guys, right? So we will encourage families to say, hey, create your own account, create your free account. I know, a lot of our partners on here get premium licenses for their schools. A lot of you all do not, right? Don't have, that's not in the budget. So families can create their free accounts here. So now we'll say, hey, let's go look at some case studies here, right? And, okay, here's your federal SAI, here's your institutional SAI. Here's what every school is going to cost you. And they can feel really good knowing that, like, look, and we do, a lot of you guys that follow us, this webinar where we do our net price calculator versus the college's net price calculators. and it's a bloodbath, right? I'm sure most of you know net price calculators is a dangerous place for most colleges to send kids that want to get, or and families that want to get an estimate on what schools are actually going to cost them, right? And I think so many people that aren't in the know, that's the only place that they go, and they just kind of take a college's net price calculator at face value. They don't know that a lot of those haven't been updated since 2008. They don't know that American University has the federal calculator, even though they use the institutional formula. They don't know that none of the colleges have their own net price calculator. They're all outsourced to a third party. They don't know that they are signing up to have their data packaged and sold and all that for all of those. So and that's not to say they're all bad, because they're not. There's some net price calculators that are pretty reliable, but none of them are we love to consider ourselves a source of truth here. So we're going to find out exactly what these schools are going to cost, these families, and we'll tell them, don't worry about the sticker price, guys. We want you to focus on what you're going to pay there, right? This is a Massachusetts resident. It's going to be more affordable to go to Amherst College than it is to go to UMass Amherst. Don't get distracted by these sticker prices. Why is BC so much more expensive than Amherst College? Well, they look at 100% of home equity, and this family has a lot of equity in their home, right? This is a divorced family, right? Vanderbilt University, they operate like a lot of private colleges in so many ways, but if you're divorced or separated, they still only look at one household. So sometimes you can get this insane deal. So you guys understand all the different nuances and things in here. That's why we want to have a tool that's customized for these families. Put in your situation, we're going to tell you what these schools are going to cost, right? Especially divorced and separated families. There's not one net price calculator that has a net price calculator for divorced or separated families when it represents 50% of the population, which is madness, right? So we are solving that problem as well. So again, we'll spend a lot of time Friday, and Anna Marie, if you want to share again that link, if you haven't registered for Friday, we'll go through the whole tool. Every private scholarship in the country is in here, line by line instructions for the FAFSA and CSS profile. Families have their opportunity to upload their award letters. We translate them. So there's 914 different ways offers were presented last year. We put them into one award, and then we tell you if you got a good deal. How likely is it that you can go back to these colleges and appeal for more money? Thank you, Emery. Okay, so let me just give you an example. Why don't you guys throw out some colleges that are really popular, at your high school, or that it was your alma mater, or maybe are schools that you're frustrated with. Okay, so first one I saw was Colorado College. Okay, great private school out there in the middle of our country, right? So, okay, $91,000 sticker price. We're going to pay 25 grand there based on our situation. Now, anytime that we want, we can go deeper in this platform. So that's great. I'm going to be paying 25,000 if I get into Colorado College, but why? Okay. Well, I'm getting 66,000 in need-based grants. Well, why? Well, because Colorado College uses the institutional formula when calculating aid, and they meet essentially 100% of need, right? And that's why. So again, anytime we want more context, we can get that. So I saw Baylor is a great example, right? Let's look at Baylor down there in Texas. Okay. Baylor, they're only okay with need-based financial aid. They're not bad, but they're going to be looking at both households. They're going to be looking at home equity. And on average, they meet 72% of need, right? Not great. Now, here's something else that we have. For every college in the country, we have every single scholarship that they offer, the qualifications for each, and we're really good at projecting, how much is your kid going to get, right? So I'm seeing Gonzaga is another one, right? And if we look at Gonzaga, okay, we're showing that we're getting a discount there. Still going to be very expensive. We're going to get a $19,000 merit-based scholarship. We won't get both because there's very few exceptions, but most schools do not stack need-based aid and merit-based aid. We're only going to get the higher of the two, right? And by the way, when they do stack it for reasons like regional scholarships and things like this, our software will account for that. So in the rare cases where it's relevant, that will happen. But okay, I'm getting a $19,000 merit-based scholarship at Baylor. Why? And then again, we're telling you why. Well, based on the student's GPA, test scores, etc., here is why we are projecting that you're going to get that, right? And there's a whole, we have a laundry list of reasons of our process. And if anybody's curious, write into us, counselor@collegejpro.com. We'll give you some collateral of how we project. But the short answer is there's 4 folks that work here full time. Their job, their number one job description is to make our projections as accurate as possible. We've got such a huge amount of data uploaded into the system because when families get accepted, they upload their financial aid awards. That's our ultimate scoreboard. That's our ultimate feedback loop. We're saying BU is going to give you this. How much did they actually give you? Right. And that is going to inform the algorithm in real time. So this part of the platform is really powerful as they're building their list of colleges, or you all are building your list of colleges together, to keep affordability in mind. So let's say I'm one of these families that is not eligible for need-based aid or not much aid, right? But I don't want to start paying 95 grand, 100 grand a year for college. So I can say, go show me schools that are close to my house, and I think we're going to be more comfortable on the smaller side, and we're thinking about majoring in whatever, okay? And then I can put a whole bunch of admissions criteria in there. And then I can say, just go sort based on who's going to give my kid the most in merit, right? And these aren't averages. These aren't, anything like that. So this is just a great way to get some ideas to say, okay, interesting. Regardless of our income, Wheaton College is likely to give us, 40,000 in merit, or, Hampshire is likely to give us, 31,000, right? If we are eligible for need-based financial aid, we can sort just based on that. Right. And it'll instantly rank order those. And, okay, MIT pops up right away. Well, that's great, but it's pretty stinking hard to get into MIT. So what are some other colleges that are really good with need-based financial aid that might be a little bit more palpable from an admissions standpoint? So I spend a lot more time in here than we do with families, but it's kind of fun because number one, we show them how to use the tool, but I think beyond that, we show them, it makes it kind of interactive, right? It'll be like, throw out some colleges. Where are you guys talking about going to ED to, right? And, what was your alma mater? And we see how generous or not they are with financial aid. How are you likely to get a scholarship here, right? So, and again, too, it'll just get them out there being proactive and engaged and because I think we can kind of, I would guess we have some shared experiences here. And that one of the least favorite parts of our job, and I imagine, and we take this especially personal because it means, unless they've just discovered us, we didn't do good enough in our jobs. I don't think you guys share this burden because it's not your responsibility, but these kids that get accepted into their dream choices and right at the finish line, they find out how much they're gonna have to pay to go there. And it's just so far out of the realm of possibility that they either can't go or they do go and they just borrow such insane amounts that it's whatever. I mean, you guys, I won't dwell on it, but we want to help families and help you all make sure that there's none of those horrible surprises at the finish line. I know before I go to tour a campus what it's going to cost me over the course of 4 years, right? Versus my budget and how that income or how that outcome outcome is going to look, which actually reminds me, let me just go show that in the platform because I didn't. So this part, after we're showing how much schools actually cost, now we just look further into the future, right? Well, what's it going to cost over 4 years when we bake inflation in and siblings going in and out of school versus our budget, right? And families put in their budget if they have any. Plenty of families have a $0 budget. So how much is somebody going to have to borrow? And in layman's terms, how is that outcome? Right. And again, same thing. If we want to get more specific, well, what's your first monthly payment going to be versus your expected take home pay based on the major at that school? Right. And again, how palpable is that end result? Right. So again, I just think it's really important that families have that front and center as they're making this massive decision. So then we're going to walk them through the X's and O's of the process, right? Every college is different, guys, and they're not gonna communicate in the same way that you're used to, the same way that your school counselors do, right? They're not gonna spoon feed you this stuff. You need to know who requires the FAFSA, who also requires a CSS profile, Princeton University has their own institutional application. You need to know that. You have to make the deadlines. Don't make deadlines. If you're wrong on the forms, no problem. You miss a deadline, could be a major problem, right? Because we're going to have an opportunity to make corrections. We're not going to have an opportunity to go back and, kind of fix that issue. So the FAFSA guys, here's, actually, this is an outdated slide here. Here's how I want you coaching it. This is how we're coaching it. I know I'm not sharing. I'm going to go grab another link for you. This FAFSA is not going to be eligible till December 1st. Okay, so here's what's going on. You guys probably heard these whispers that they're going to do this, focus test group. So for October 1st, they're going to hand select a couple of college and a couple of families at random. And they're going to see how this FAFSA process goes. And then they're going to open it up to the public at large December 1st. Now, they're learning from some of the mistakes of last year of just like kind of promising, or at least loosely promising, these dates when it was going to be ready and continuing to kick it back. Now they're kind of starting at the end. So if the FAFSA becomes available November 15th, we all look like heroes, right? They being Department of Education, the new head guy there. So the talk track right now is everybody chill out around the FAFSA. If you need to do something around the FAFSA, go create your FSA IDs. Otherwise we're sitting on our hands. And again, this is how we are doing it with families that we are supporting. This is how we're coaching it. Only thing we're worried about in October is the CSS profile. We're going to complete the CSS profile, right? We're going to get that done. That's out of our plates. We're going to go through IDOC and verification process with the College Board. That's going to be, and of course our admissions applications, that's October and November. And part of this is kind of nice. It's just like, let's do this in silos. And then December 1st, we're going to be ready to go with the FAFSA. They're not going to lose any opportunities. Those that are selected in this focus group are going to get zero more financial aid benefits than any other group. So do not, that's the coaching around it. I put a link in here from the Department of Education. That's just a prototype, right, for the new FAFSA. New FAFSA itself is going to be very comparable to last year. Really hoping they work out some login issues. I hate how the students and parents had to log in separately. Whatever. I'm sure you guys did too if you were close to that. I don't expect that to change. I really hope I'm wrong, but I am not optimistic there. So happy to answer any other questions, but no massive updates outside of that. So we'll talk them through again, some FAFSA best practices, right? Some of the newer updates that are still relevant but can be confusing. Here's divorced and separated families. Here's the bad news about siblings, business owners, right? CSS profile, this is what gives people nightmares, right? So we'll talk through this. It doesn't get enough press. It should. This is what has people, pulling their hair out. So we will talk them through that again. Different deal for divorced and separated families, different deal for business owners and homeowners. We'll talk to them about questions like these nuanced questions, like how much can you pay each year for college, right? That drive people crazy. Best practices. Guess what, guys? You don't have to answer the questions that are not required to answer. And guess what? There's over 150 of those, and most of them hurt you more than they help you. So again, we'll give some best practices there. And then finally, we'll kind of circle back and say, plant a seed. We're going to talk about this for more when the time becomes more relevant, but we're not interested in accepting the first offer that a college offers. And we'll talk through best practices. Should this be through financial aid? Should it be through admissions? Is it both? Should the parents be leading the charge? Should the student be leading the charge? Is it both? Right. So again, we'll talk through best practices there and expectations, right? Generally speaking, if you're a middle-class family, whatever offer you get from your in-state flagship university is probably the deal, and we're very likely spinning our wheels. Is there exceptions? And is there anything wrong with trying? Of course, there's exceptions, and no, there's nothing wrong with trying. But again, we'll do our best to set some expectations there as well. But we want to plant that kind of mentality, that mindset. So that is let me just make sure I didn't miss anything else. That is like the crux of the presentation, right? I did a bastardized version for you all, knowing that your school counselors, right? So of course, we're not breezing over cost of attendance minus SAI equals need, and we'll be, I was lollygagging around within the platform there. We'll be a little bit more focused, and perfect world, right? Is that the parents are like hearing us talk and learning about what this means and seeing their SAIs right there and what some of their top colleges are actually going to cost them. So that's again kind of the get, right, and then obviously that they are getting their questions answered, right? So they get to ask these more granular questions like, what about joint accounts? What about 529 UTMA, right? So if we are not partnering with your school already, again, I'm putting this link in the chat again for you to book a time with Anne Marie. Make sure we get a date on the calendar for you for September or no later than October. We are, as you would expecting, filling up kind of fast and furious here. And there's different ways that we can do it. We can do it just for your school. We can do it for, there's that one, it usually comes with a cost, but the rest of the opportunities are free. And the, we got a bunch of different, and we're on all different coasts and every time zone. So, or here in the US. So we can accommodate you there. And, we do everything to make life easy on here. We want to speed food this stuff. So we do the copies of the email. You just got to share the links, right? And obviously you can tweak anything you want and edit the emails, but we're trying to make it so you just have to go, here you go, guys. They're going to teach you everything about financial aid and scholarships. And you're not endorsing us as a company or anything like that. It's just, we like to think we know what we're talking about. And I encourage you to do our due diligence on us, talk to other schools that work with us. Do a deep dive, fact check everything that I set up here, right? Make sure these folks that I'm saying are on our team, are in fact on our team. You can see recordings of previous presentations at actual schools if that's helpful. And again, we work with the whole gamut. So we work with a lot of independent schools, and their audience is totally different than I shouldn't say totally, because there's still a lot of overlap, and you guys are going through, or these parents are going through the same experience with their kids, but then our Title I schools, right? And so the emphasis of the presentation will be different between those two audiences. And most families are somewhere in between, right? Or most schools are somewhere in between where there's a representation of all ends of the spectrum, with most being in between. So, we are looking to serve everybody regardless of where they're at on any of those fronts. And again, just trying to be the source of truth here during the process, navigating a process that is a toughie here. So again, we're grateful with the opportunity that we get to support a lot of you all already, and we're always looking to expand upon that. And I'm getting another request for our presentation on Friday, so let me grab that link again, and sorry that I closed out of that page. Yeah, and again, what I will talk about Fridays, I'll just go a little bit more in depth again within the platform itself, and then the curriculum, because obviously this is the presentation that we'll be busy with over the next 4 to 6 weeks. And then we're into line by line through the FAFSA, line by line through the CSS profile, right? Or vice versa there. Then we do presentations on the verification process and IDOC, private scholarships, understanding award letters and appealing, paying the bill. How do we get the lowest loan rate? Should we take the, federal direct student loan, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay. Yeah, I mean, look, am I hopeful that the FAFSA process will be significantly better than last year, even with the December 1 release? Part of how we're having these conversations even internally of like, you know what, let's really manage expectations. Let's anticipate that there's going to be some more pain. Let's anticipate that they're not going to make the December 1 release. Okay. And I think if we have expectations aligned with them being like, maybe they're going to be marginally better than last year, we're setting ourselves up for success. I don't see how it can be worse. I expect it to get a meaningful amount better. I do. That's my best guess. But I still expect it to be tons of nightmares and hiccups and not working and sign-on problems, right? So, but gun to my head, we're 50% better this year. But it's not gonna be seamless. And who friggin' knows, right? But I think if we can just kind of like manage expectations and say, guys, December 1st is the earliest we're gonna get in there. Don't be surprised if it's gonna be late. And guess what? You're missing 0 opportunities. We're all in the same boat. It's gonna be frustrating. Stuff's gonna be broken. And we're gonna get through it, right? And we're gonna get through it, right? Like if you followed along with us last year, we spent so much time on the front lines going that we found all these hacks to get these FAFSAs across the finish line. So we'll be doing that again. Like and we'll have people literally just dedicated to getting FAFSAs across the finish line every single day, and then sharing what we learn in real time with everybody that's in our ecosystem. So follow our lead there. That's kind of my advice. Follow our lead. We're going to get through it just like we did last year. And I think there's a lot of positive to have it being staggered with the CSS profile. Yeah, I mean, look, will schools be anticipating this as well and have more tools and communication to help their potential students at colleges? This is not verified, but I saw something, I forget what the publication was, but it was something that I think you would you know, be more likely to believe, but something like colleges lost like 30% of their financial aid counselors over what a nightmare it was and how stressful it was, and a lot of them are relatively underpaid. So my short answer to that question is no, I do not anticipate that colleges will be better with communications and have more schools. Now, again, I'm speaking in broad strokes here. A lot of schools will get better and have more tools and better communication. A lot of schools will get worse. A lot of schools will stay flatlined. But on the whole, I'm not counting on the colleges to make our jobs or your jobs easier. Again, getting back to managing expectations, I would have a similar mindset. Yeah, happy to help as always, guys. And yeah, like I said, welcome back for those of you, and good luck getting back in the swing of things. We managed to keep ourselves pretty busy even during the summer. Hopefully that's not the same with you all. Although I see so many of you all even during the dog days of summer as well. So even if you're not busy, you're very much engaged, which I always admire and appreciate. So yeah, sign up for Thursday for Friday, 12 Eastern time. If you haven't already, we'll kind of walk you through myself and Peg will walk you through the whole end gamut of the platform, how we partner with schools, the entire curriculum. But if you're not on our calendar for September, and throughout the rest of the school year, make sure you do that. Ping Anne Marie, get on her calendar, because we have dates propped up for you guys too, right? So if you're on the West Coast, we could say, hey, pick this date and this time, or versus East Coast or somewhere in the middle of the country. We'll take care of you. But either way, always appreciate the questions, always appreciate just how the care for all you guys. We're out here. We're at the tip of the spear together, y'all. So we're excited to be with you and look forward. Here we go again, team. Here we go. Another school year. Let's see what's in tow for us. Thanks, everybody.